All right, welcome back in. Just another football show. It's the Sunday nighter, right, or the late afternoon? I guess maybe it's not Sunday. It's not
afternoon. Sunday
with the bird battle,
Bird Bowl,
bird bowl, bird bath bowl. They got to get a sponsor, right?
Yeah.
Some bird something.
There's got to be a birdseed company out there just ready to
Bird's
throw.
Eye Vegetables.
Yeah.
So we're talking Seahawks and Eagles here. We're going to preview that game, get some fans on the line.
Sorry to get you excited, Falcons fans, but you know your team's not in this.
Sorry, Cards.
That is true. We got Ryan. We got your buddy John coming on, right? Is that correct?
He's guy from the Pacific Northwest.
There we go.
Seattle fan, was super stoked on the Marshawn stuff. So we'll see how he feels about the game coming up against Eagles. Eagles have no right winning games yet. They're kind of gritting their way through.
What they do.
And so they're on a bit of a tear almost.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, their playoffs started a month ago.
Yeah. And I mean, against this the Seattle team not too long ago, they narrowly lost. So it's a rematch of sorts on two teams that I would say are pretty much entirely different than when they met just a month ago. So should be an interesting one, right? Hard to make out what either of these teams are, but we have two great fans on who know what they're talking about, and hopefully they can kind of sell me on their team.
Exactly. I was just getting ready to say that's why it's fun that we do this first before we do our preview.
Yeah.
So now I can just mirror what all of our good fans
because this really
say
is
and sound like I'm smart.
Well, the problem is most of them are going to pick their team to win, and you can't pick all of them to win. You got to pick one.
Yeah, that's true. I have to go somewhere.
Yeah. To me, this is the toughest.
And they can't tie
pick of the,
either because it's the postseason. That's impossible.
Toughest pick of the weekend for me.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So let's get John on the line, shall we? Get him rolling. Start talking a little Seattle Seahawks.
They calling me.
All right, now we are going to welcome on John. He is a Seahawks fan. Got a big matchup coming Sunday, late afternoon, Sunday night, right? That's what it is. Trying to keep all these times straight.
And I just got to get it out there real quick. It was looked at. It was reviewed.
Stop.
Was not pass interference.
Oh, it was definitely pass.
Oh, it was totally pass interference. It was 100% pass interference.
I thought you were being serious for a second.
No, I mean, everything I said was serious. That's actually a statement that came out, but I completely agree with the 49ers got away with one, and I am, for one, fine with it.
I'm salty as hell, but also, you have to understand that you also get away with several calls for your team, and as a Seahawks fan, I can't complain too much about that.
And I don't think that wasn't necessarily I don't want to say downfall because it was a great game. It was the best way that you wanted to end the 100th season.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
it came down to what,
a football
foot?
game like that. Yeah, less than a foot.
Yeah.
But what really did it in for Seattle on Sunday night was that delay game penalty that backed them up because Marshawn was trotting back out on the field. We had just saw him go over everyone to score a touchdown. The place was electric. They had to stop play so they could pick Skittles up off the damn field. Yeah. So you knew, I'm a 49ers fan, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, they're that close. Here comes Marshawn. It's over. It's ball game. And because of an injured player, they had to take the delay game penalty because he could not get off the field in time with no timeouts to call. So I guess fortunately for 49ers fans, unfortunately for Seattle, that was ultimately the shakeup between that game.
Yeah, and even with that, they had 6 or 7 shots at the end zone, and they just couldn't connect for anything. I mean, if you have that many chances and you just can't make anything happen, I think it's hard to have things come down to one maybe bad call that doesn't go your way, or
that is a surprise. Yeah, that is a surprisingly optimistic response there, and I like that. I like
responsible.
Yeah, exactly. I like that because normal fans will just sit there and scream that they were screwed and this and that. But this happens in all the time, and like you said, you had the opportunity to go for it further on the end. And I think this, unfortunately, is the way the Seattle team has been playing football literally all season. 10 of 11 wins going into Sunday night game, all decided by one score. That's insane.
It's been a pretty insane season, yeah.
And the only team that's been playing more one-score games is the Chargers, and I don't trust them nearly the way I do Russell Wilson to put a victory together in a final second drive. But as close as these games are you a little bit worried that if this game Sunday, we're on the Sunday games now, which is weird, but if this game Sunday comes down to a situation like that, are you at all worried about Seattle's abilities to be able to get it done in the final seconds?
Not super worried, I guess. I think, the Eagles aren't quite as strong a team as the 49ers and some of the other teams we've played this season. But yeah, it's the fact that so many games are these one-score like chaos festivals. It just means like you can't really count on like game plan or like almost strategy. Almost, it's just like, can Russell Wilson clutch out some insane play? Will luck break the teams away? So I've had to kind of reach some kind of state of acceptance with the way the team is playing this season. You just can't really count on a game to turn out normally.
Yeah, it's at the point where you kind of have to just like let it go. Just let it, autoplay, whatever. You don't have any influence over it. You just have to like let it go. And I'm hoping in this one we get that 1 yard touchdown from Marshawn to kind of seal it that we were robbed of on Sunday night. Because it was set up perfectly. The story was going to end on an exclamation point. It ends on a dud. But I want to talk a little bit about Marshawn just because it's been the story of the week. It's been so fun and exciting. I know that you're into it, but what does it mean to have Marshawn back for this playoff run, I guess?
It was really nice seeing him get a touchdown on Sunday. That was just a great moment for the team, for Marshawn. And really, we really need any help we can get at the running back position right now because it's just decimated. Size is out. Chris Carson's out. I think our other running back on the roster is a rookie right now.
Yeah, Travis Homer stepped up.
And he looked great.
Good.
He was slicing and dicing this Niners team
on every play except the touchdown.
He is the anti-Marshawn. He's the small, quick guy that goes to the outside.
Yeah. And before we get too far into it, because I know Ryan and I have the exact same opinion on this, and it was frustrating. I'm a 49ers fan, and it was frustrating to see this go down the way it did Sunday night. But when they trotted Marshawn out, everyone and their brother knew that this was going to be a run play, yet they ran 0 to no play action off of Marshawn being on the field. Why would Pete Carroll not have the forethought to be able to take advantage of that?
I have no idea. Pete's been doing some weird stuff, not just this season, but the last couple. He really seems like the kind of head coach that outthinks himself at points.
Yeah, it was like 3 different levels of thinking, like, oh, we can do this, but we could do that as a decoy, but we could do it as a double decoy where it's really just the thing that we thought it was originally. And it definitely seemed that way. Obviously, Marshawn doesn't fully know what Brian Schottenheimer's system and isn't good at picking up blitzes. Does anyone? Yeah, that's true.
Does anyone know Brian Schottenheimer's system?
That's true.
Because I'm still extremely confused.
Especially after the last couple of weeks, right? We saw them absolutely lay an egg against the Cardinals, and that got Jam and I really going at it a couple of weeks ago because that was just so bad for them to be like that.
Yeah, they were so hot before the Rams game, and since then, lost 3 of their last 4, and against the Cardinals. Like you said, they just didn't look into it at all. I mean, that was like they've given up some early leads in the past, but with the way the season's gone, it's like, okay, no early lead for either side matters, so something's got to happen in the second half, but then it just didn't this time around. That's like one of the only games they've played this year that hasn't been a 1-score.
It was so weird. Like, the offense could not get going. You couldn't get DK was 0 for 0 for 0, which was fine because I was playing against Jam and him in a fantasy match championship. So
maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they had such a terrible game.
Tyler Lockett wasn't going on. Like no one was really doing anything in that Cardinals game. So I was basically ready to write them off and say they're done. They show up in this San Francisco game, and now I don't know what to make of the matchup with the Eagles, because the Eagles have their own injuries to deal with. They've had a litany of long-term, short-term injuries. They lost Brandon Brooks last week, their starting guard. They're down to practice squad wide receivers, practice squad running backs, but Carson Wentz has been playing as amazing as any other quarterback in the league and kind of stepping up. So we kind of have a matchup of two just weird teams. Seattle's the one scorer mavens. They're winning all these games that are close, except for the last one. But and the Eagles are showing up when they need it most. So it's tough to put my thumb on, but I do think this is one of the most interesting matchups of the weekend. What do you make of this Eagles team? The team that you have to go up against on Sunday. What's your read?
I don't know a whole lot about the Eagles. I just haven't watched a lot of NFC East football this year, just because
you're lucky that way.
Yeah,
can't blame you.
Yeah,
I think the really the big battle to watch is going to be, can the receivers Carson Wentz is working with beat a pretty bad Seattle secondary? Because it feels like that unit's been limited by injuries through the second half of the season, but Seattle's pass defense has just been rancid. You saw that a lot against the Niners, where George Kittle was just standing alone in the middle of the field on so many plays.
Yeah, and Eagles are a team who loves to use their tight end. They may not have Zach Ertz, but Dallas Goedert's a pretty good fill-in.
Yeah, Gogurt fills in nicely.
So it'll be an interesting matchup in that regard, especially with the success that Kittle had.
And it's really funny hearing you talk about the inabilities in the secondary, because it seems like, and it was quite a while ago, but it seems like it's a little more recent, but at the same time even longer, since we've come from this Legion of Boom and this team and this defense. It's just not there, even the home field advantage. So maybe it's a good thing that you guys are traveling, because this team's been very effective on the East Coast, but all their losses this season have been at home in the clink. So what's going on here with that?
Yeah, it feels like the bizarre version of the Seahawks from 5 years ago. Just no pass defense, road warriors. I think they're 7-1 on the road, something like that.
Yeah,
maybe undefeated. I don't.
And that was a thing that I was trying to figure out a couple weeks ago is what happened to the home field advantage, and it seems to have dried up or gone away or whatever. And I know a lot of that has to do with the team and things like that, but I do not know what to make of the clink, and like Jam said and like you said, maybe it is better that they're on the road. They beat the Eagles at Philadelphia a few weeks back in end of November. So maybe that's better. That's so weird to say, especially for this Seattle team.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said to perhaps teams have learned to play around a lot of noise in the past few years, because Seattle's not the only one that brings in a lot of home crowd noise. Kansas City also gets pretty loud, is my understanding, but the fact that there's that huge... Yeah,
there's a record or something. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Casey's throwing shots at me. Yeah. But the Seattle team, I have a really tough... This game's going to be tough to pick. Thank God we don't have to do it now. We get to talk to all you fans first and hopefully sway our decisions.
Yeah.
But
I think the line right now is Seahawks by 2 or something was what I saw.
Which is pretty good for being on the
road,
but Philly with all their mistakes.
Yeah.
The Seattle team, I have such a hard time counting them out of anything as long as Russell Wilson is there. Our Eagles fan mentioned it, and he spoke straight to the soul of me as a 49ers fan, because there is nothing more frustrating than watching your team have Russell Wilson under pressure in a
dead to rights.
Yeah, exactly. In the crosshairs, near sack, and all of a sudden it turns into a 40-yard gain or a touchdown, and it's Russell's bread and butter. You can never count this team out as long as he is in. That seems to be kind of the MO of what this entire Seattle team has built its legacy on, is as long as we have Russ, we have a chance to win, and he's continued to prove that.
Build our offensive line or...
That certainly won't ever bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's such a Russ-focused team now, just relying on his ability to make plays out of almost nothing. I think when those losses started happening in the past month, people were wondering if maybe Russ had some sort of leg injury that was slowing him down, so he couldn't create as much, or maybe Tyler Lockett was still sluggish when he was recovering from an injury, and like he's one of those primary targets when Russ is on those scramble plays. Maybe he just was having a harder time getting open.
I absolutely love the fact that this team, who you just said has done little to nothing to help Russell Wilson out, can struggle and lose games, and everyone goes, oh, something's wrong with Russ. No, something's wrong with your team. It's just now coming to light. You're seeing it. Are you at all worried about the fact that this is what Philadelphia seems to do, right? They seem to get hot at the right times. They pull themselves up by the bootstraps, basically. When it seems like all the chips are down, they don't have anyone. They have a plethora of injuries. Someone steps up, makes plays, and they've been playing playoff football for well over a month now.
Yeah.
Need to win this game. Oh, they need to win this game, and they've won all of them. Are you at all worried about the fact that just seems to be this Philadelphia Eagles team right now coming in here to play Seattle? Are you at all worried about that this is just their mojo, if you will?
Yeah, the Eagles seem to really be a team that relies on being counted out almost. Like
underdogs.
In their Super Bowl run, people were like, no, this team's not going anywhere with the injuries they've had then. But yeah, it's hard to, if the Eagles are a very hot team and the Seahawks are not very cold, but they're not as hot as they were earlier in the year. So it's hard to bet against that hot team, even though I'm still favoring Seattle right now. But yeah, this definitely does feel like a game that plays into what Philadelphia's identity has been in the last few years.
All right, you said it. You're favoring them, so we have to ask.
Yeah.
We need you to pick this game and give us a roundabout score. What do you think this game's gonna end up at the end of Sunday night?
Well, I think Seattle is going to try to run the ball way too much in the first half, and that's not going to work out at all because the Eagles have a pretty good run defense, but Brian Schottenheimer likes to stick with that. And then in the second half, after they're down by, let's say, 10-13, they'll finally have to rely on Russ scrambling a bit. The game will get really close, and then in the final minutes, some weird bullshit will happen. I'll say the Seahawks win 21-17.
Yeah, it's fair. This is one of those games I just really don't have a good feel for.
That's a perfect description of a Seattle game, right?
It's true.
You get down.
He nailed it. It's almost like he's watched them all season.
Scramble around, and some bullshit happens, and you win. And I know that
some bullshit happens and you lose.
Some bullshit happens, you lose.
Bullshit's going to happen.
Or you end up a foot short, and kind of throw off the whole playoffs. But I know that our Eagles fan basically called for roughly the same score. Ended up being pretty close there. So that's kind of consensus, a close game with each person choosing their own team to win, obviously.
So, psychic over here.
Yeah.
So. All right, man, we will let you go. We appreciate the time, and hey, you never know. Maybe we'll be bugging you to come back on next week.
We'll see. Thanks for having me. It's always fun talking
If they're coming back in next week, it better not be as the lowest seed because I do not want to see this team again.
Yeah.
I can't say I blame you there at all.
I don't think I want to see San Francisco again either.
So the feeling's mutual.
Yeah.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, so now we're going to welcome on Corey. Corey is an Eagles fan. We haven't had him on yet. I've tried a couple times.
We've been close.
I haven't got it done, so we hammered it in this time. Got it done. Corey, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. How are you guys?
Not too bad. It's got to be okay. Your team made the playoffs, right? That someone had to win that division, and you guys got it.
Someone did, and luckily we did it with a winning record.
There you go.
That's a positive look on it.
All right, I like the optimism.
Cowboys,
You beat out the Cowboys. It's always got to make an Eagles fan feel good. And for the most part, Eagles have been playing playoff football for the last month or so.
Yeah, they have, and it's must-win games for the past 4 weeks, and so this matchup against the Seahawks are going to be no different. Except obviously we're going to be missing our Pro Bowler Brandon Brooks, which is probably the biggest loss we've had all season.
And that speaks volumes for what you guys have lost throughout the year. The fact that Carson Wentz has thrown for something over 4,000 yards, but no receiver has had 500 is insane. Just to think of the turnaround that you guys have had to endure as far as receivers getting hurt and different people coming in here and there, and this team's resiliency. And this is what We got into a little bit of a debate last week on the show about between the NFC East teams that were still contending for a playoff spot, which one could do the most damage. And I think it was Philadelphia, and I still believe that, just based on the fact that this is what this team does. They get in and they win football games that they probably shouldn't, and they've been doing it for a month. They get in here, and now it's the playoffs, it's the postseason. The dog masks, I've already been seeing them. They're going to come back out. And this team with a home playoff game is a huge, huge get for the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, we're going to be underdogs again. I think we're 1 or 2 point underdogs right now.
I think Casey's got it. You got that in front of you? The score or the Vegas odds for this one, Casey?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
I don't have them right in front of me, but I'll pull them up. Keep talking.
I mean, we're underdogs again, but we're also facing Russell Wilson, who has maybe the best road record, in the NFL as a quarterback. I think they've only lost like 4 times coming to the Eastern time zone. And so, I mean, it's going to be a tough matchup regardless. Going back to what you said, which team could do the most damage? I mean, you'd almost say the Cowboys right off the bat because of they're mainly healthy. But they've been more inconsistent than the Eagles have, especially, these last few weeks of the season. It's still up in the air whether Miles Sanders and Zach Ertz are going to play, but I mean, Boston Scott did really well last week, and Dallas Goedert. I mean, everybody knows what he can do, and he stepped up too this last week, and defense has been playing better. So, I mean, I have some optimism that we can actually pull out a victory, against the Seahawks.
Yeah, these teams played a little bit over a month ago, back end of November, and it was a one-score victory for the Seahawks. But both these teams are pretty much entirely different now, right? The litany of injuries for the Eagles to kind of force guys like Greg Ward, Boston Scott, Dallas Goedert into starting positions they weren't in before, and Seahawks have their own issues with running back, with losing their 2 guys. Their offense seems off-kilter lately. So even though it's a rematch from 5-6 weeks ago, it's almost entirely different. And I would say that as of right now, the Eagles are the team that's playing better. I know that maybe sounds weird because Seattle, but Eagles have, like Jam said, won 4 games straight, all games that they had to win, and they've won them, getting slightly better each week. Carson Wentz is getting more confidence. He's playing at the top of his game. He's playing extremely well over the month, especially throwing to guys like Greg Ward, Josh Perkins. I could make up a bunch of names and you wouldn't know if it's real or not. Well, you would, but
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff that all these factors are going against him. Losing guys, losing Brandon Brooks. He had, he had a bunch of guys. Lane Johnson was out for a while. Jalen Mills is coming back on the other side of the ball. But so all these things going against the Eagles, and they still managed to pull out 4 victories in a row. To me, it's very impressive. It's kind of playing with more heart than other teams are. It's willing yourself to a victory. And especially that win over Dallas a couple weeks back, and then to just kind of blow out the Giants with all the injuries coming throughout the game. Very impressive for me. Eagles are definitely a team to watch right now, especially against a Seattle team that seems to be flailing a little bit. So I have confidence in the Eagles. We'll see what it comes down to when we have to make our own picks. But I like where the Eagles are at right now, especially now that they're getting Jordan Howard back. Miles Sanders is still in the mix, but do you think that Jordan Howard could be effective for this Eagles team? He's been out for quite a while, right?
Oh, he can definitely be effective. I mean, just on, Doug Peterson's, game planning, normally if a player hasn't played in, that long of time, he's not in the game plan, which is why Jordan Howard only played 1 snap last week despite Miles Sanders getting hurt. So I imagine he would be more in the game plan, especially with Miles Sanders, iffy for this game. I mean, I think it was an ankle sprain, so he may play. Even if he does, I think Jordan Howard's going to be mixed in there a lot more. So maybe we'll have more of a ground game that could help Carson Wentz. And then, the Seahawks have lost 3 of their last 4 games. So, I mean, and, obviously the Eagles have won their last 4. So I'm really hoping, among all of that they can pull out a win.
Yeah, these 2 teams, for how they played each other over a month ago or so, and the way they've kind of conducted themselves since then, both kind of going different directions, but both kind of winning and losing the same way, right? These are two teams that play very close games, don't seem to really blow anybody out of the water, and it usually comes down to who makes the fewest mistakes. In this time,
you're absolutely right.
In this time frame, though, Philadelphia has seemed to rack up a few more wins, nearly all wins because they needed them, as opposed to Seattle, who's got a couple losses along the road here, one of them being a big blowout loss to a Rams team that really had no business even competing the way they did at that point. So Philadelphia winning the way they are winning and Seattle losing the way they're losing, the way things are sort of mirrored here really makes you want to believe that at home Philadelphia stands a better chance here.
Yeah, I mean, at home is a big advantage. I mean, us going on the road, I would even have more doubts. But I mean, having the home crowd and, especially in Philadelphia where, everybody's all rowdy and maybe, arguably one of the worst fan bases and
worst
all
slash
sports.
Best.
So, yeah.
Depending on which line of the side you want to see it.
So, I mean, maybe they can give us an advantage, as far as that aspects go. But, I mean, still you're playing Russell Wilson. I mean, he's one of the best. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. When I was watching the Seahawks and 49ers, I was really hoping they'd score that last game because, I mean, it's so hard to tackle Russell Wilson. And that, as a fan watching the game, is so frustrating when you get that close. He escapes, throws the ball downfield to someone who's wide open. It's just ridiculous how he does that.
Yeah, I've said that several times. Being a 49ers fan, it is tough to watch Russell Wilson escape time and time again.
It's the formula to beat the 49ers.
It sure shit is. But when I look at these two teams as a whole, Seattle oddly seems more beatable right now, or susceptible to a loss, I guess, however you want to word that, than this Philadelphia team does, even without with the cast of characters, I guess, that Philadelphia is trying out there. We saw this team go through this last season, but on the defensive side of things. They were pulling guys straight off the street, teaching them how to play secondary, and that team went on a little bit of a run in the postseason, came out of nowhere, much like they're doing now. The only difference is you've got Carson Wentz, who at the time I thought maybe couldn't do it with this team because Nick Foles seemed to be the guy that they stepped in they played better for. Now Carson solely has secured his spot, finally, in my opinion, as the guy on this football team, and the team seems to be rallying around him. He's been the only constant throughout the season.
Well, I don't think there's no doubt he was always the guy, but everybody just thinks he's in Nick Foles' shadow because of the Super Bowl run. But Carson Wentz is the guy who got him there. I mean, if they didn't have that first round bye, who knows if they would even, got to the Super Bowl. I mean, Nick Foles didn't play very well, against the Raiders, against the Cowboys. Well, obviously they rested, the second half of the Cowboy game that year, and he didn't play very good against the Falcons either. So, I mean, he caught fire at the right time, and I think that's the main reason that we won the Super Bowl that year. But, I mean, it was still Carson Wentz who got us to that point, and he deserves, a lot of the credit for that.
Yeah, Carson, in my opinion, is doing a great job of shaking off all the possible criticisms you could have for him. Injury prone. Well, guess what? He starts all 16 games this year. Not a leader. Clearly, his team is buying into him. I saw some good mic'd up segments with Carson, and the way that he talks to those guys, the way that those guys listen to him. He is clearly the leader on this team, and he is doing a good job of stepping out of Nick's shadow, as you kind of said there. I think if for him to get a playoff win would be huge, especially for this team, the fan base. That's kind of the knock on Carson. Our buddy Kyle is a big Eagles fan, and you can always kind of goad him into getting real defensive of Carson easy. But he does step up, and he always defends Carson. It sounds like you're the same kind of guy there. And I think Carson winning a game here, a playoff game, one playoff game would be huge for Carson, if not more. So I just want to see that happen for Carson Wentz. I like the guy. I like the kid. He's doing a heck of a job with a tough slate of stuff there. So I think Carson Wentz is playing as well as any quarterback, but Russell Wilson is the one that's going to get all the talk coming into this game. But to me, this is the most intriguing matchup of the weekend, and the one that I want to sit down and watch the most.
So I think the unsung hero of this, obviously everybody can say it's the quarterbacks, Wilson and Wentz. The Eagles defense has played great for the most part, the past 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I think they ended up top 10 in total defense. So I think that's really going to be the factor of who wins this playoff game is, can the defense stop Russell Wilson at least enough to slow him down for the offense to, hopefully score some points and pull out a victory.
All right, so we're doing it with everybody. So you're not getting any special treatment here. We need you to pick this game and give me around about what score you think we're going to get.
Well, obviously, I'm taking the Eagles. I mean, that's a biased pick, but
That's your job. That's why you're here.
Unless you're betting money, of course, you're always going to pick your team. I think the score is going to be 24-17. I think that's pretty realistic.
Yeah, that's absolutely very realistic.
And that's right in the Eagles' wheelhouse. I looked through all their games, and they had a lot of games where the other team only scored 17 points. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in the last 6 weeks. So pretty nutty there. But I think that's the recipe for them to win. Keep the other team to 17 points and score between 20 and 30 points, which is what they've been doing on a tear here. So that's very realistic. I think that's a very possible outcome.
Yeah, perfect. I definitely agree.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll let you go. We'll let you have the rest of your night. We will maybe talk to you again next week if your team gets that big W and we got another game coming up.
Yeah, I'll definitely be on if we can pull out a victory.
Sounds like
Talk
a plan.
about it.
All right, man. Thanks for the time.
Guys. All right, bye.
All right, that's another one down, guys. We got we're doing them all. Guys, go out, find the videos. They're out there. Just watch them.
Great to
listen
have.
to them. We'll have them all out on podcast form, so you can download them if you want to do that way. Multiple ways for you guys to listen to these previews that we're doing. We got some good games this weekend.
Yeah, very fun slate of games here. All of them could go both ways. I don't think there's a game here
there's not a lock.
domination. Yeah,
and the New England Patriots are playing this weekend, and there's not a lock.
Yeah, I don't feel too good about very many of these games. So, all right, guys, we will, like I said, check the feed wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Find the rest of them if you've listened to them. If you haven't, find one that you haven't, and give that a listen. Until next time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This has been Just Another Football Show.
Bye.
See ya.
One.